Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Donovan, back again, MKD58 Media. Obviously, as you can tell, I'm shooting from the vehicle again. Just a real quick, brief movie review for you guys. I recently watched American Psycho, starring Christian Bale, and a whole slew of other folks are in this movie. Jared Leto is in this, Chloe 70. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name right, but recognize her from a lot of stuff. But a lot of people are in this movie. This movie came out in 2000. It's basically like a satire slasher film. It's kind of talking about, it's a satire on the whole kind of yuppie culture and excess and just that whole kind of yuppie vibe that I don't even know if that's still a thing anymore, but I remember kind of back in the day, years back, when the whole yuppie culture was that, that was a thing. So this is about that. Christian Bale plays Patrick Bateman, who is, I don't know what his official position was as far as his job is, but he's basically working this job with a whole bunch of other, executives and vice presidents and vice executives and all that type of stuff, guys that are almost like carbon copies of each other in terms of mentalities, how they dress, and what they value. But Christian Bale has a kind of somewhat of a dark secret where he's a murderer, a killer of sorts, or at the very least in his mind he is, which leads me to what I think about this movie. I think a lot of the kills and the murders that he commits in this movie, he doesn't really commit, that a lot of these are in his head. Now, it's a little confusing because I think some of them he really does, and I think some of them are in his head. I've done some reading, and I know there's kind of people disagree about that. Some people think he really did all of them, and others think a lot or even all of them were in his head. I feel like a portion of these kills, these murders, were in his head, and part of the reason I feel like that is the way they were shot, some of the editing, some of the reactions, and there's just different elements that lead me to believe some of these murders were just in his head. But what I will say is I like this movie. I enjoyed it. It's a very kind of it's again one of those movies, which I guess this might apply to all movies, I guess technically, so it might not even be worth saying, but it's a movie that's not for everybody. But I enjoyed it. It's one of those movies that has been on my watch list for years, and I just never really got around to watching it. But it's something that always I was always curious about. I was always interested to see it, but just never got around to seeing it. So I finally did, and I liked it. My score for American Psycho, I'm gonna actually go 8 out of 10 for this movie. Some people aren't gonna really give it that high of a score, but I give it that high of a score because it accomplished what it seemed like it was trying to accomplish very well. And it was a very kind of entertaining film, at the very least intriguing film, kept me engaged, kept me kind of wondering where things were going. It was interesting seeing, the folks he decided not to kill. And I guess I won't really get into spoiler things, even though this is a really old, 20-year-old movie by now. But I won't really get into specifics in terms of spoilers, but there are a couple people that he chooses not to kill. And it's that was an interesting dynamic, because going into this movie, I didn't expect that. I kind of expected him to just be on this all-out murder rage thing, which he kind of was, but I wasn't expecting him to show any people a sense of mercy, or him to kind of decide not to kill certain folks. And that's what happened in some parts of this movie. And there's a reason behind why he decided to spare the life of some of these people. It seems to be because these folks showed him a level of kind of, I don't want to say human compassion, but they showed that they kind of saw him as a person and kind of looked past the facade and all of that him and a lot of his co-workers and everything put on, and that made it difficult for him to even bring himself to kill these people that I won't name. You'll have to watch the movie yourself. But so I really enjoyed a lot of the elements of this movie. It's a very violent film. It's there's some harsh things going on, but it's not really any more harsh or violent than any other R-rated movie about murder and mayhem and things of that nature. So but I do recommend this movie, but you just got to be in the mood and in the vibe for this kind of material. Again, this is basically a slasher, a satire slasher film. So you're gonna get some of that kind of satire on the yuppie culture, but you'll also get, you know, that slasher murder bloodlust stuff that goes on in the slasher film. So again, final score for American Psycho, I'm going 8 out of 10. Strong score for this movie, but I didn't have any issues with it. I didn't have any issues with the acting. Oh, but I really wanted to point this out, because everybody loves this scene, so you probably know the scene that I'm talking about, but this scene was hilarious to me when they're showing off their business cards. Oh, the very first time I watched this movie, I rewound this scene at least 3 times. This scene was so hilarious to me, the way they were pulling out the business cards. And if you notice, when they pull out their business cards, it has that little wind sound, that kind of dramatic sound, like somebody's pulling out a gun in Desperado or something, or pulling out a knife or something, showing the business cards, and then proceeding to describe the font and the gloss and the materials on the cards and all of that type of stuff. It was a really hilarious scene to me. Christian Bale's acting in that scene, which is his acting throughout this whole movie, is really kind of low-key incredible. You know what I mean? He's very talented actor, Christian Bale, and it's also amazing how young he looks in this movie. You know what I mean? Like, when I thought of American Psycho before actually going ahead and watching it, I didn't really realize how old this movie is, and thus how young Christian Bale ends up looking in this movie. Like, it's really crazy, and it's one of those things that makes me feel that much older, like seeing like how much time has passed. Because I remember when this movie was, coming out for the first time, like I remember seeing the trailers, him doing the crunches and running down the hallway with the chainsaw and all that stuff. Like I remember when this was first coming out. So it's really amazing and crazy how fast time flies. But that's it for this review. Like I said, it's coming from the vehicle. It was just a convenient way to do it, because I'm kind of trying to run a few errands right now, because the world, if you haven't noticed, is pretty crazy right now. So that's it for now. 8 out of 10 for American Psycho. All right, I will catch you on the next go round.